Buzz. It is Friday, and you know what that means. It's time for Fri-YAY. So, as always, I'm Megan Enan. I am your mezzo soprano sidekick here to help it make it happen for you. so, but really, honestly, this is my weekly, semi-weekly web series, when I'm not displaced from my house in New Orleans. but this I have exciting news because I get to go back home tomorrow. So I'm super pumped about that. Thank you for everybody who has been so supportive and thoughtful and helpful during this time. I am over the moon to know so many generous and giving people. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It means a ton to me. So this Fri-YAY is about content creation, but it's also about goals and most desired outcomes. So when I talk to my coaching clients, instead of using goals, I usually use most desired outcomes because I want to talk about what lights you up. And sometimes goals can feel a little too much for some of the things that we're talking about. I'm definitely a goal person. I love thinking about goals and I don't mind being called ambitious. Those things aren't scary to me. So, but that doesn't mean that that's the case for everybody. So talking about most desired outcomes, this is what I want to start with first before we start talking about content creation, because we gotta know what we want so that we can create the path for it, right? So for most desired outcomes, I really, really want you to think through this. In fact, I actually just did a big kind of reboot of my own. As I'm sure you imagine, I do it in a spreadsheet because that's the kind of person I am. And so I've been doing this, since in this form actually since 2016, 2014, something like that. And one of the ways that I just check in with this is getting very clear on it and actually having to write it out to perform to the ensemble, the repertoire that I think happens there, that it has some sort of connection or meaning to me. So I have to think through those things. And and that's just one example, right? Is I want to know what I find meaningful and why. And those are my most desired outcomes. So most desired outcomes, in my life have to do with the verbs. What are my verbs? Like singing, singing, performing, coaching, teaching, running a nonprofit, arts administration, that creative placemaking. These are all things, audience development. These are things that I care deeply about. And I want my life experience to be full of work around that area, full of full challenge so that I can try and contribute to our community, our society, et cetera. And that's what I want you to think through. So what are your most desired outcomes? Obviously, if you've seen me posting recently about my 20-year goal exercise, this is a big part of that, which is like think far into the future, right? Think as far as you possibly can. What are your most audacious goals? What are the seemingly impossible things that you think about in the quietest parts of your heart and you say like, that you probably wouldn't even share with anybody else because it seems too big to desire, too big to dream. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is I want to know, well, I want you to know what those things are and be able to call them up immediately, right? So like I said, I have one that's in a spreadsheet and I go through every so often. And one of the ways that I've done this is also to look at my role models in our field, and I go through their bios or their resumes and I say, what is it that I really what do I really value about them? What do I really value about their career? Why do I think of them as a role model? And then that informs also, oh, I have a value around that. I want to have that kind of experience. That's helping me kind of decide, does that make it on the list? Or is that something that I think is really special about them, but it doesn't resonate with me. This is one of the things that I found really interesting about when I went back to my own list recently. And some of the things that were on the list from a previous iteration, I checked back in and I said, that's not for me. I don't, I, that's not the expression that I want in this world. And it's probably because I was thinking, oh, well, that looks like something I want. But then it's always okay to change once you realize that your life is full of experiences and you only want the same things all the time, right? You're going to change and grow as a person. So, okay, so we've talked about most desired. You are thinking about your most desired outcomes. And what I'd like you to do is now we're switching gears to thinking about content creation. And content creation is really just about putting your work out into the world in a way where people can find you, relate to you, resonate with you, and then also stay connected to you. So that you're staying kind of at the top of their mind or on their radar or whatever, so that when an opportunity comes up that they might know about, so either they're coming to you as a client or they know of something that is a right fit for you, maybe an audition or a grant or whatever it is, residency, that they know about that and they think, oh, this is right for this person because I know what they're about. See where I'm going with this? Most desired outcomes is what you're about, right? We're making content that helps illuminate what you're about so people know who you are and can help be that connective tissue, right? Between you and opportunities or between you and what you want. Okay? So, content creation, I really want you to be. But I also want to share a story that happened probably 6 years ago or something like that. I had a lot of people in music that asked me to do administrative things for them because that's what they knew that I did. And I started to get kind of weird about it. I started to have a complex about the fact that I was getting asked by people I wanted to work with creatively or musically to do administrative work together. And while I do love that side, I love arts administration, I love those kinds of tasks and qualities, uh, I wanted them to ask me to sing. And so this brings me to my ahas at that moment, which is we teach people how to think about us. We teach people how to talk about us. And so I realized that I wasn't, because I was feeling maybe insecure or I wasn't feeling as confident in my singing side of my life, I wasn't talking about that as much as other things that were going on. And so people really started to have a conception of me as only doing arts administration, or perhaps that's the direction I was going or whatever. And I realized that I needed to share the things that I was really passionate about with people regularly. So I needed to talk more about performing. I needed to talk about how much I love being on stage, working on new music, working with composers, bringing new music to life, that kind of stuff, which you may have seen me talk about that. So in that experience, I started to identify the fact that I wasn't doing a good job of sharing content that was around my most desired outcomes, around some of my most desired outcomes, but not all of them. And one of the other things that I do is share Tuesday tunes, right? Because I really want people to remember that I sing, that I perform, that I do these things, and that I love to collaborate with composers. And so Tuesday tunes is a chance for me to share recordings, right? So that people can hear the kind of music that I sing, the kind of timbre of my voice, the fact that these are the composers that I've worked with, that I've had collaborative relationships with, and I really want to see their music go farther into the world. Those are the kinds of things that are really important to me. And I need to share that work consistently. So I'm asking you to do the same thing, which is what's something very manageable that you can do where you are helping other people understand what you do, what makes you special, what is it that you deeply care about, the work that you're putting into the world, what are you super passionate about? I want you to think about how often am I sharing that in a way where people can feel like they can find out more about it, can relate to it, and can stay connected with that work. If they're really into it, what's the next step that they can take? Right? What is it that you want them to do with that work? Do you want them to get more involved with you, like by signing up for an email list or something like that, so that you can let them know when you have more work coming out? Or do you want them to buy your album, for example, right? What is it that you want them to do in marketing, right? We call this the call to action. So when you're creating content, does your content align with your most desired outcome? Are you giving your listener, your participant, your whatever, a way to continue that relationship with you so that they can follow on and do the next step to whatever it is with you, right? And so that's what I really want you to think about is just like creating that content, coming back to that idea of can people find me and the work that I'm doing? One of the things that I find somewhat challenging is trying to find artists to and share their work, right? Is that it can be, even if you're Googling them, it can be very difficult to like wade through things to find the person who you're trying to share. So ask yourself, am I super findable? Is my work easily findable? Ask yourself, do people have a way to relate to me? Do people have a way to stay connected to me so that when I have more content to share, they can easily be notified about it in a way that allows them to take a next step with me? Those are my prompts for you, divas. There's I just want you to be thinking about this. Content creation is not content creation is an ends to an a means to an end. There we go. That's how that phrase works, right? So is a means to an end. Content creation, unless you are an influencer, I don't know, is not the business itself. It's to help people connect to the business. Okay. I want you to be thinking, so we're not spending all of our lives on the content creation. I'm having you spend your life on your meaningful work. And then I'm asking you, how can you easily and consistently share that with your community and outside of that community, easily and consistently, so that people can find you, relate to you, take the next step with you? That's it, divas. As always, stay sparkly inside and out. Until next